Hello again. In this video we're going to finish up the world.py and we're going to make all of our tile classes. So we're going to start with class map tile, and then we're going to make what's called an initializer function. So this tells the class basically what information it's going to hold. Intro and description. And then self.name equals name. And this is telling the class that anytime that it sees something like self.name or self.x, then it is to refer to what was passed here. And anytime you make a class, so for example tile equals map tile, and everything inside of this, inside of the parentheses here, this is called instantiation, by the way. Every time we make one of these, the initializer function here, these parameters or arguments come from here. Okay, so anytime you instantiate a new class, so tile is a new class, there is a new instantiation of the class, then the name would be map, then x, y coordinate, etc. So that's where the arguments for init come from, the initializer statement. And then we do self.x, self.y equals y, self.intro equals intro, self.description, description. Okay, now we have that. So now what we want to do is make a class method or function inside of a class called intro text, which will just show the player the intro that you've assigned to whatever tile you have. So all that does is return self.intro. And remember, because we put self.intro equals intro, it just returns what we passed in here. And remember also that you get intro from an instantiation like we did just a little while ago. So like map tile, and then name, x, 1, 2, intro, description. So that's where that comes from. So self.intro refers to intro, which refers to the intro that's assigned to this. If you want, I can make a new or another video just about classes to explain it a little bit more in depth, but I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible. So now we're going to make something called adjacent moves, if I can spell. Adjacent moves always pass self as the first parameter in any function inside of a class. So just for time, I'm going to copy and paste this because I already have some of it written on another file. So what we're doing here, north, and remember we made a tile exists function, and also what I forgot to mention is in tile exists, if this does get the something, or does actually find whatever the x and y is. So if it goes through and finds that, I don't know, coordinate x and y actually exists in the thing, in the dictionary, then it pulls out the class assigned to that coordinate. And then we're able to access the name from that. So if the tile exists at x coordinate and y coordinate -1, then assign the name. And you do this for north, south, east, and west. And for south, you would do, well, for north, it's only y -1. South is y +1, east is x +1, and west is x -1. Just for a visual representation, how that would work is, say you're at spawn tile. To go up north 1, you would do, actually I think I messed it up. Oh no, that's right, okay. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 5 elements here. So say you're at spawn tile. To go up north, you would have to -1, because remember it starts 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So it would go up 1, so you would -1 from y, and then to go east, you would plus 1 to x, so you would go over this way, and etc. Excuse me. Now, okay, if things will cooperate here. Now, I'll expand on this just a little bit more a little bit later. So if north is not equal to none, so remember we told the program that if the tile name is equal to none, then assign is equal to empty quotes, then assign none to that coordinate. And then if the name of this coordinate, or of this tile that we pulled out, is none, or is not none, then you're able to move. But for now, I'm just going to put move.append. You can move. And again, you would have to do this for every direction. And just the reason I'm not actually doing any more than that is because we're going to be getting into actions a little bit later. So don't worry about that. It's not too big of a deal right now. So next we define another function called available actions. And here's a new thing, possibly for some people. This is keyword arguments, keywords. What this means is if we call this function, then you don't have to pass any arguments to it. The keyword arguments, or the keywords, just allows you to either have arguments in it or not. It just allows you to have optional arguments. So, for example, if we had tile equals something, okay, then the keyword here is tile, and the thing attached to that is something. And keywords is a dictionary, so the key is tile, and the value to that key is something. Now, just going to leave that there for a little bit more context. We're going to check and see if we passed in a keyword argument, and if we did, then we're going to make a new empty list. Then we're going to loop through excuse me, our keyword arguments so we're going to use for key value, which means we're going to do both key and value in keywords.items. And items is a built-in function in the dictionary. It makes an iterator, so you're able to loop through it, and it checks both key and value instead of just keys. And so we're going to set up for later on in the game, for later on in the videos, we're going to say if key is equal to in battle, and if value, and you can say if value, which would mean if that value is true, then we do the code. But for readability, we're just going to say if value equals true, and then we're going to pull out the player from the keyword arguments. We're also going to pull out the enemy equals keywords enemy, and then we're going to make battle actions later, and then we're going to say pass because we're not going to return anything yet, but eventually we will be returning the moves list. So now excuse me, I'm going to set up another thing for if key equals in town, then if value equal to true, then you can, here's a debug just so you know that when you go into the town, it's actually registering that you're in town. In town from available actions. Now, going to make town actions. So later on, we're going to make something like visit shop, view board, which is a quest board, and some other stuff like that. We're going to say pass because we're not returning anything here. And then we are going to go back and say if there were no keyword arguments, then moves equals self.adjacent moves. Remember, open and close parentheses because we're calling a function here because we want the we want the return value from that function, which will be the list moves. Now, we're going to, just to remind ourselves here, append basic actions. So basic actions in this case would be, for example, they can always list their inventory no matter what's happening unless they're in battle, and or can always list the commands, or they can always type look and see what tiles they're able to go to around them and what tiles those are. And then we're going to return the moves, and then there you go. That is your base class, and this is what everything else is going to come from. So now, let me delete this so we don't get an error. I'm probably, well, I don't know. Might not. Oh no, did I really do that? I think I did. Whoa. Well, I messed up there. I must have deleted that. My bad. That's crazy. Okay. So now we can make all of our other tiles. So we're going to do class spawn point, and we're going to subclass map tile. All that does is just lets us have access to everything inside of the map tile class. Basically, we're going to extend the template of map tile class. So we need to make another initializer function. Remember, self is always passed as the first argument, and we're only going to give it an x and y as the two arguments. Self.x equals x, self.y equals y, self.name is equal to spawn. And the reason we're declaring these in here but not up here is because this will refer, or will tell map tile that that spawn is the name. Okay? And you'll see how that happens here in a second. And self.intro is equal to spawn. I don't know, that'll work. And then self.description is equal to spawn place. And then finally, this is how everything, the name, intro, and description gets passed into the map tile initializer function. We do what's called super dot underscore underscore init. So now we're accessing the initializer function of the parent class, which in this case is map tile. And then we're going to pass all of the arguments from up here. So name, x, y, intro, and description. And we're going to assign all of these into that. So x equals self.x, y equals self.y, name equals self.name, intro equals self.intro, and then description equals self.description. And there you go. That's, oh wait, let's do one more thing here before we stop here. We're going to do what's called modify player. So we're going to make a new function called modify player, and this lets you do elemental effects and such like that. And we're going to need to have the player as one of the arguments, and we're just going to say pass. That way it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's the spawn. You probably don't want anything to happen here. So what this will be doing later is you'll basically, let's say, to take from earlier, or from the first video, say you're in a dense forest and it's too dark to see, so you have the possibility of losing an item from your inventory if you bump into something. This is where that logic would go, and I'll be using this in a later video. But to make all of the other classes, you literally just follow this, and you can copy and paste this, and all you have to change is name, intro, and description, and that's it. And if you want the thing to modify plate, actually, never mind. But that's it. So I hope you guys understood it. Hope it was easy to understand. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comments below. Alright guys, have a good one.